You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start by breaking down a few NBA games that happened yesterday. I will start with Warriors 76ers. A very, very exciting game, tied at the half, even though the Sixers were without Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. Obviously, the Warriors are without James Wiseman. But Steph Curry put on a shooting clinic. 14 for 28 from the field, 11 for 12 from the charity stripe, 10 for 17 from beyond the arc. The guy had 49 points in 36 minutes. It was a dominating performance. Yesterday was Curry's 11th straight game where he had at least 30 points. He now holds the record for most consecutive games scoring at least 30 points in the NBA by a player that's at least 33 years old. He broke Kobe Bryant's record. This was his 5th 40-point game this month. That breaks the record for most 40-point games in a month by a player that's at least 33 years old. That record was previously held by Kobe and Michael Jordan. Curry is doing things that are superhuman. He played 4 games last week. In those 4 games, he averaged 43.8 points per game. Forget the 50-40-90 club. He was in the 50-50-90 club. He shot 57.3% from the field, 54.5% from beyond the arc, and 90.6% from the charity stripe. He is single-handedly keeping the Warriors in the playoff hunt. As it stands right now, they're the 9 seed. They'd face the Spurs in the play-in tournament. Will the Warriors win that game? It's hard to bet against Curry the way he's playing right now. They'd face the loser of the Mavericks-Grizzlies game. How's this for a matchup? Luka Doncic versus Steph Curry. Or Ja Morant versus Steph Curry. That sounds really, really good to me. I mean, it's kind of funny. You had Steph Curry on one side going up against Seth Curry on the other side. In the city of brotherly love, no less. Gotta love it. The Curry brothers combined for 64 points. that is impressive. That's not the record for most points by brothers in a single NBA game. That record belongs to Dominique and Gerald Wilkins. I mean, I'll say this. The way that Curry's playing right now, we've got to look at him as a legitimate MVP candidate. Assuming the Warriors get into the playoffs and they don't lose in the play-in tournament, you've got to think about giving another MVP to Steph. This guy is leading the NBA in scoring. He overtook Bradley Beal. He's averaging 31.4 points per game. He's nearly in the 50-40-90 club. It's very close. He has the 40 and he has the 90. He just doesn't have the 50. He's at 49.1% from the field. And in answer to your next question, Curry is already a member of the 50-40-90 club. He joined that group in 15-16 when he led the NBA in scoring. That was the year that the Warriors went 73-9 and lost to the Cavs in 7 games. And yes, Steph Curry did win MVP that year. Curry has a real argument for MVP. I mean, someone asked me the other day who I'd give my vote to for NBA MVP. I'll say this. I did say James Harden. I think you look at what the Rockets have done without him, and you factor in the fact that Harden basically single-handedly kept the Nets afloat when Durant had his injury and Irving had his absences. That would probably lend my vote to Harden. Maybe I'm being biased, but I think without Harden, the Nets are fighting for a playoff spot now, and not just a game behind the Sixers for the top seed in the East. I mean, Harden is tied with Russell Westbrook for leading the league in assists per game at 10.9. That does mean something. And I don't think you can give the MVP to a guy like Beal or Westbrook. Not with the way the Wizards are playing. They'll be lucky to be the 10 seed, to barely get into the play-in tournament. But you can make a very strong argument that the MVP should be Steph Curry. I do think that Steph Curry is the best shooter that we've ever had in the NBA. The guy just does things on a nightly basis that no one else has ever done. In fact, you can make the argument that he's the best point guard in NBA history. I know he's got some stiff competition. Guys like Chris Paul, Oscar Robertson, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, etc., etc. I understand that. My vote would probably go to Curry. So look, great game for the Warriors, great game for Steph Curry. They're staying alive in the fight to be in the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. And if the Nets beat the Pelicans tonight, they'll be just a half game behind the Sixers for the top seed. Are they going to beat the Pelicans? I don't know. No Durant, because he's still dealing with that thigh contusion. No Harden. It's going to be the Kyrie Irving show. It's certainly possible that the Nets can win. I just wouldn't put any money on the game one way or the other. Moving on now to Suns-Bucks. A game that featured one of the craziest endings of the season. The game is tied at 127. Last possession of the game, shot clock turned off. We're in overtime, Devin Booker has the ball. He makes his move, and with 0.3 of a second left, Jrue Holiday is called for a foul. Devin Booker sinks the first free throw, misses the second one on purpose. Bucks don't have any chance to hoist up a desperation shot. Suns win in overtime. Look, this was a great game between two of the best teams in the NBA. Two teams that you don't talk about. You talk about who's going to represent the East in the NBA Finals. It's the Nets or Sixers. The Bucks really don't get a lot of love. They have Giannis. They should be in the conversation. I'm not saying they will represent the East. I do think it's going to be the Nets, but they should be in the conversation. Meanwhile, the Suns are the 2 seed in the West. No one's talking about them. Monty Williams should get Coach of the Year. Everyone's saying it should be Tom Thibodeau. All due respect to Thibodeau. All due respect to what the Knicks are doing. Alright? They've won 6 in a row. They're tied for being the 5 seed. They're a half game behind the Hawks for the 4 seed. I'm not knocking Thibodeau, but I don't think what he's done with the Knicks is as impressive as what Monty Williams has done with the Suns. They're both impressive, but Monty Williams would get my vote. And again, no one's talking about the Suns as being a legitimate threat to represent the West in the NBA Finals. Hey, they're the 2 seed. They have some great players. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton. That's a really good big 3. It's not great. It's not the next big 3. But it's pretty good. But back to yesterday's game. It was a back and forth affair. 24 lead changes, 16 ties. Neither team led by double digits. You were locked into this game from the jump. And then, I'll say this, to have it end on a controversial foul call, I don't like that. I'd rather you let him play. Personally, I didn't see a foul from Jrue Holiday. They said that he got Booker with the left arm. I'm watching it now. I just don't see it. I don't see a foul from Holiday. PJ Tucker, maybe? But I feel like I would have let the play go on. I'm the kind of person where if it's a late game situation, a close game, unless it's egregious, let them play. And in the playoffs, you always let them play. I don't care if it's the first quarter or the fourth quarter. You can't tell me that that was an egregious foul. For the game to end that way, one of the best games of the season, that left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not trying to take anything away from what the Suns did. They beat a really good Bucks team. The Suns are really good. We should be talking about them more. But that game did leave a bad taste in my mouth. There's no question about that. Incredibly, though, that game was not yesterday's best game. The best game yesterday was probably Grizzlies-Nuggets. It went into double overtime. You had Herculean performances from both sides. I mean, all you have to do is look at the box score, and you'll be amazed at the numbers that these guys put up. If I go through them all, we'll be here until next week. I mean, I'll tell you the players who impressed me. Xavier Tillman, who got his first start in the NBA, had a double-double. That was nice to see. Kyle Anderson was solid. John Morant was great. He had a double-double. Grayson Allen was really good off the bench. DeAnthony Melton was a spark plug, as was John Conchar. Nikola Jokic nearly had a triple-double because that's what Jokic does. Michael Porter Jr. was really good. Will Barton was really good. PJ Dozier was really good. JaMychal Green was really good. Paul Millsap was really good. The story of this game was almost the no-shows by Aaron Gordon and Facundo Campazzo. They combined to shoot just 2 for 15 and 1 for 10 from beyond the arc. But the Nuggets were able to eke out a victory. And realize the Nuggets are doing this without Jamal Murray and Monte Morris. I understand that the Grizzlies were without Dylan Brooks and Jonas Valanciunas, but it's a little different when you're missing a center and a shooting guard versus missing 2 point guards. That usually doesn't end well. But give the Nuggets credit, they're fighting through it. They're the 4 seed right now. Thank God they have Jokic, I'll say that. He's the best passing big man in the NBA. Without him, they'd be up a certain type of creek without a paddle. He's taken on more of a point center role, and he is incredibly dominant when he has that responsibility. Speaking of missing point guards, the Nets are missing point guards. No James Harden and no Tyler Johnson means that I've seen more Chris Chiozza than I'd care to see. In response to that, and LaMarcus Aldridge's retirement, according to Mark Stein of the New York Times, the Nets are going to sign Mike James. There's a meme in there somewhere, I just don't know it. I know there is a meme involving the name Mike James, I'm just not that familiar with it. James hasn't played in the NBA since the 17-18 season, where he put up 9.3 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game, and 3.5 assists per game for the Suns and Pelicans. He did not shoot the ball efficiently that year. There's no question about that. But with CSKA Moscow, his game improved. He was playing really well. The thing is, though, last month he was suspended indefinitely because he got into an altercation with his head coach, Dimitris Itoudis. Now, James is under contract with CSKA Moscow through 2023. But it's been reported that CSKA Moscow is content to release him and let him go back to the NBA. So that doesn't seem like an issue. I mean, I'll say this. I'd like a little more clarity on what happened with Etudis. The only thing I know is that James was pulled early in a game against Unix Kazan. The two of them got into it a little bit, and then James wasn't seen again. He was also suspended in January. Why? I don't know. Admittedly, I don't follow European sports. I don't follow European soccer. You think I follow European basketball? I had some people ask me, Jacob, what are your thoughts on this new Super League that some European soccer teams are putting together? I don't know the first thing about it. I know it's happening, but I don't know what to think. But going back to James, I am a little concerned that he has this checkered history. You couldn't find anyone better. There was no one else who has more recent NBA experience and didn't get suspended twice that you could sign. I mean, I'm not going to bang tables over this because I don't know exactly what happened with James at CSKA Moscow. I'm sure that the Nets did their homework. I don't know what connections they have with CSKA Moscow. Obviously, Mikhail Prokhorov is no longer with the Nets. And I did look to see if any Nets, whether they were players or coaches, played with James with the Suns or Pelicans. The answer is no. James is a new teammate to everyone. It's kind of interesting. Again, I'm not going to bang tables over it. I don't know how much of an impact he's really going to have when guys like Harden and Johnson come back, even though I'm not a Johnson fan. I just think there was a better point guard out there that you could have signed. I don't know who exactly that was, but there had to be someone better. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. And I'll start with the Raiders signing Rasul Douglas. And this is a good move. I like Douglas. I think he has talent. I remember a few years ago, one of the Madden games I traded for Rasul Douglas, and he turned into a really good cornerback. Now that hasn't happened in real life, but Douglas is solid. Last year for the Panthers, he had a 60.3 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. Do you want him starting on the outside? The answer is no. But he can be your fourth corner, and you'll be fine. The Raiders need corners desperately. No cornerback last year for the Raiders had a Pro Football Focus grade that was higher than 55.6. I fully expect the Raiders to go heavy at corner, much like I hope the Jets do. Douglas will help them, there's no question. They do have some young corners, guys like Trayvon Mullen, Damon Arnett, Amik Robertson, and Isaiah Johnson. But I don't think those guys have bright futures. I'm selling their stock, let me tell you. This move makes sense for the Raiders. They just need to go heavy at corner in the draft. Moving on now to the Dolphins signing DJ Fluker. And this is an interesting move for the Dolphins. Fluker's really good. He's one of the best backup offensive linemen in the game. Last year for the Ravens, he had a 63.8 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. He was a better run blocker than he was pass blocker. The reason why I'm saying it's interesting is because the Dolphins really didn't need offensive line help. They just took Austin Jackson in the first round last year. Granted, he didn't have a good rookie season, but you've got to give him more than 1 year, just like you're giving Tua more than 1 year. Robert Hunt had a good year. You still have Jesse Davis. He's a solid offensive lineman. Fluker is going to replace Jonathan Hubbard as the backup right tackle. And I'll be the first person to tell you that I don't know the first thing about Jonathan Hubbard. I know he didn't play a snap last year, so if you want to replace him with Fluker, that's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But it does put Jackson on notice a little bit. Hey, you better step up, or else we have a guy in Fluker, and Jesse Davis for that matter, who can come in and replace you. In fact, the same thing holds for Solomon Kindley. Kindley's their starting right guard. Fluker has right guard experience. Kindley was a 4th rounder last year. He did nothing. He had a 51.3 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. This is a signing designed to push guys like Jackson and Kindley. And I like it. It makes perfect sense. You've got to keep Tua upright. Let's see if he can be a great player in this league. I think he can be. I'm not giving up on him. But he does need some help. And it does start with keeping him upright. This signing will go a long way towards doing that. Good job by the Dolphins. The last story to talk about is the Panthers signing Daquan Jones. This is a really good move for the Panthers. Think about this defensive line. Brian Burns, Daquan Jones, Derek Brown, and Yetur Gross-Matos. That sounds really, really good to me. Jones has been a good defensive tackle in this league for a long time. He's been a Titan his whole career. He's going into his 8th season. Last year, he had a 67.7 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. You know, I give Matt Rule credit for this, and I'm skeptical of Rule. I think he's a little overrated. Can he win something first, please, before we start saying he's a really good coach? But he's an offensive guy who invests heavily on defense. In the last draft, he didn't draft a single offensive player. He went out this offseason and signed Denzel Perryman. He signed Hassan Reddick. He signed A.J. Boye. Now he's bringing in Daquan Jones. There's a healthy balance between offense and defense that you need to hit if you want to succeed in this league. So what drives me nuts about the Jets, people say, now that you have the young quarterback, you've got to go offense. All offense. To hell with defense. No. There's a healthy mix there. You can't win 38-35 games every Sunday, just like you can't win 7-0 games every Sunday. There is a happy medium. Rule realizes that. That's a good job by him, and this is a great move by the Panthers in bringing in Jones. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that the wind always seems to be blowing against catchers when they're running.